Folks, the dog days of summer are upon us, which brings up the question you've all been waiting for. Translation, Yinz Dahn to listen? I'm Greg, aka Cookbook Thor, and I am joined as always by...
I'm Rob, aka Jibs Warrior, and it is definitely a summer that has seemed to stretch on and on. I think it's the heat, Greg, that really bothers me. But we haven't really got a chance to sit down and talk for a while on the podcast, so I think we probably have some interesting topics. But what are we getting into on this episode?
Yes, we've had some adventures, haven't we? Both on our own and as a team, have we not? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's high time that we ran them down. Let's see. Shall I begin?
Yeah. Let's start with your. You're a bit more prepared for this than I am. I'll let the audience know that right off the bat. Greg took notes, and I'm going to be squeezing the sponge that is a memory of about 45 days worth of activities. So I'll let you kick it off on this go round.
Okay. Yeah, probably the most interesting activity I did in August was I visited a little place in Akron, Ohio called Killer Video. It's a museum designed to look like a 1980s video rental store, and it's actually become that in real life. They now rent videos as well, but they also offer tours of the museum to see the massive collection that they've got, and it's like stepping back in time in the most beautiful way. Um, I could live there. I could just, you know, pack up all my stuff here and just move in adjacent to that place, and I would be happy as could be. Yeah, they were holding an event there, which is what drew me in as well. From time to time, they'll have a dead media market show where vendors come in and sell various physical media, movies and music and such. And I had a few things I was kind of looking for, and of course, as these things go, you come away with more than you expected to find. And this was no exception. It was a good day for treasure hunting and just an amazing day for the monster kid inside me. So I was glad I got to experience that, and I will certainly be returning. I believe they're having another dead media market in October. I believe it's on Sunday the 26th, and that's certainly tempting to attend as well.
Well, I think I saw on your social medias like they have like a counter, like a rental counter kind of photo op thing situation going on that I thought
They
was
do.
just with all the stuff in the background, the yeah, I mean basically it was like I was looking at a picture that you took in, late 80s, early 90s, and I can't even imagine what the rest of the place looks like with that just being one still that I saw.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's like time traveling, and yeah, that's when you first step in. One of the first things you see on the left is that um, that mock-up checkout counter, and it really sets the tone for the rest of the museum. Which there's one portion that's devoted to the movies and the standees themselves, and then there's another portion that's dedicated to more the history and tie-in products and things. And there's some really interesting stuff there. Toys I recognize from my childhood, and um, advertisements, and even a handful of screen use props. Although that's not the focus there, but there's a lot of cool stuff to be seen there. And yeah, photography is a little more limited on the memorabilia side. But because no photography could really do that justice, and
Right.
it seems to be continually growing. So yeah, if you're ever in Akron, Ohio, and you get the chance, I strongly encourage you to visit Killer Video.
I'm going to hit you with two hard-hitting questions. Okay. The first one, what what did you bring home from your visit?
What did I bring home? Let's see.
Yeah, I can guarantee it was probably more than one thing, right?
Yeah, let's see. I believe I got a few Lucy cassette tapes. I know one was the unauthorized. Well, it was authorized only by the band's previous management, but it was the first Black Sabbath greatest hits album called "We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll," and it was. I mean, it's a decent compilation album, but it was done without the band's knowledge, just as a cash in by their previous management in the '70s. And on top of that, I got Led Zeppelin Physical Graffiti, and getting those on cassette was kind of fun. And from our friend Chris at VHS Crypt, I got a vintage Simpsons LCD handheld game, and I got a few sealed VHS tapes as well. I got the Doctor Who episode Robot, which was Tom Baker's first episode in the role as the Fourth Doctor, and I got a couple of Star Treks as well. I got um, the original series episode of Taste of Armageddon and the movie Star Trek Nemesis, which is not a great movie, but I wanted to have them all, and now I'm just one away from having them all sealed. So next time, hopefully.
All right, second hard-hitting question.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's in that store, everything that's in that facility, if you could have bring home one thing that you didn't, and we're talking anything is on the table, the props, the the standees, anything. What would you take? If they opened the door and said, "Hey, you can have one thing of anything you want," what would you have grabbed?
Oh wow, yeah. No, the options of the VHS tapes there are just almost limitless. It would probably be something out of the museum section, and there was some really cool stuff there. Like there was a whole case devoted to the Mattel Mad Scientist toys that I loved as a kid.
Huh?
It might well be something out of that. There was cases full of Nightmare on Elm Street memorabilia, and any of that would be really cool. That
I
is a
was gonna hit.
tough
I was
choice to make.
gonna hit you with a
Um,
hard question.
hmm Yeah, you know what? I'd have to eeny meeny miny mow it. I think, and no matter where I land, I'd be a winner
Oh
because
yeah,
the place is magnificent. But
awesome.
I'd probably have to go with um, the Mad Scientist Monster Lab because they had one in the case, and it reminded me of 1986, and that bringing that dopamine into my brain from nostalgia of my childhood is why we do this, all this cool stuff, and that was a strong rush of it, and it's on my list to find certainly.
There you go. All right. Well, I'll jump in with one. This one, is probably well, it was a whole entire trip, a whole entire family vacation, but this was one portion of it that really was the trigger for why we made the journey. And I was able to attend Flashback Weekend 2025 in Rosemont, Chicago, Illinois, at the beginning of August. Um, this whole thing kind of came about because along with you, Greg, have been a fan of Sven for a number of years. And if the audience is not familiar with Sven, shame on you, first of
Yes.
all. But secondly, every Saturday night, MeTV, horror host extraordinaire Sven been in Sven since 1979. Been,
So fixture in the Chicago area, real
yep,
name Rich Coase. He
just,
actually started out as the son of Sven Gulli and then took on the mantle proper after a certain time had passed. And yes, he's hilarious. He's full of trivia. It's a great family watching experience. I'm glad to be able to do that myself, and it's awesome to see that you do the same.
Yeah, yeah, it was something that we've been into for a long time, and over the past 10 to 12 months, my household has become Sven crazy.
Mhm.
It started with me, and we watched a few movies here and there, and you know, at first, with my wife and my son, it was cheesy, and then it became, about the films and what he was showing, and then the jokes, and it was something to where now we are sitting down routinely every Saturday to tune into Svengoolie. The first one that I can remember that we were really, really into was a airing of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, which is just a gorgeous piece of film. So to
Indeed.
have it to have it aired on Svengoolie, and it was a treasure trove of break jokes and commercial return jokes and things like that. So it was extremely entertaining. But um, long story short, we became a Svengoolie household pretty significantly. And, we asked my son this summer what he wanted to do. We usually don't do a summer vacation, but, um, we try to do something. And he said he wanted to meet Svengoolie. Well, if you do know who Svengoolie is, you know that he does not do very many appearances. It's actually probably two, maybe three a year, and they're pretty much 99% of the time in the Chicago area. And Flashback Weekend is one of those stops that he makes every year. He's kind of like their host. So we made arrangements to be there, Flashback Weekend, for a few days. And, Flashback was, I had a good time. I want to preface this whole situation with I had a good time. Sven was obviously the focal point. We did get to meet him, photo op with the family. We actually had four photo ops. We had a family picture, and then we each individually got our picture with him. Very professional photo ops. We've talked about that on this show in the past of meeting celebrities and having photo ops done. And that would have been the first day of the Friday. And then that evening, we were able to partake in a hosted segment because the other marquee name that Flashback Weekend had was Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger, if you're not familiar with his work. But Sven hosted an after hours kind of panel talk show, late night show type of setup for those in attendance who could come, and Sven and was going to interview Robert Englund. And actually they've done this on the show in the past where Robert Englund was in makeup during this late night segment. So they're familiar with each other. They're actually very friendly. They've known each other for quite a long time. So we got to partake in that as well on Friday night, and I'll get into a little bit of that here in a minute. But Saturday rolled around, and Saturday was getting to meet him day. So photo op, like you said, sometimes it's really quick. Um, but the next day was kind of his autograph meet and greet. And the nicest thing about the whole scenario is he doesn't charge a fee. Obviously to get a photo, there's a fee to that, but it was extremely inexpensive in comparison to some of the stuff we've done in the past. But the autographs free, one per person, obviously, but you got to meet him and interact with him and have a conversation. And the best thing about the entire flashback experience was that my son has become a Valley of Gwangi fan. The old Ray Harryhausen film, stop motion. He brought it to my attention, and he extremely wants Svengoolie to air that on a Saturday night program. So he drew with a drawing pad on a drawing pad, 9 by 12, kind of thing you get at the craft store. He drew his version of a cover of the Valley of Gwangi, and he wanted that autographed, and he wanted to make sure to ask Sven to please air it. We never really looked it up, but apparently back in the mid '90s, before he was nationally televised on MeTV, he did air the film. So it wasn't a stretch for that request, and we waited in line. We were there early, just to make sure, because obviously you fly across the country or partway across the country to meet someone. You want to make sure you don't miss it. So got the autograph and, took a video of my son going up as the first person to get his autograph and then asking Sven to play the film. He didn't even have a chance to ask Sven to play the film. He, Sven looked at him and said, this is a great, great drawing. He's like, we're going to air this. We have this film. We're going to air it soon. And, we're not supposed to say because he said, oh, don't tell anybody. But I think we're getting close enough that they are going to air The Valley of Gwangi in November. And my son lit up. He couldn't believe, he made him basically repeat it. So, it was a mission accomplished type of situation in that aspect. So that made the whole trip to Flashback completely worth it. Now, the Friday night, this is a story that I've held on to since the beginning of August, so Greg could hear it for the first time with you all
Mm.
in the audience, and uh, it was a really good little event. So we had, Sven interviewing Robert Englund, and then there was a performance by Tuesday Night where she sang the theme song to The Nightmare on Elm Street, which was kind of a little out of place, a little odd. Uh, they had Barbara Crampton from, it's from Reanimator film fame for me, but she's obviously been in many other things. But the best and most juicy story to me was Sven was discussing with Robert Englund some of his living arrangements before he became Freddy. He was a classically trained actor who had played on stage. He had done Macbeth, and he was talking about all that. But one of the things that I didn't know until this event was that him and Mark Hamill were incredibly close. Uh,
Hmm.
and he actually, had a home and, outside Hollywood, and Mark Hamill was quite often at his house, and they would, be reviewing things because Mark Hamill too was very classically trained prior to becoming Luke Skywalker. Um, so he really wanted to be Robert Englund wanted to be in Apocalypse Now. Okay, so he thought he fit some characters in that film, so he went to audition. Had the army fatigues on and everything like that, and he went in to do his audition, and he felt he did well, and it was one of those situations where he felt he did well, but when he was leaving, he wasn't necessarily getting the vibe that he was going to be fit for it. So as he was departing the audition, he bumped into, I can't remember if it was just a script polisher or what the official title was, but there was some parts kind of laid out on a table for a George Lucas project. Um,
Hmm.
and he knew who he was, obviously, from American Graffiti. So he kind of browsed over the parts as they were laid out on the table. He was making some sort of space film, is what he said. Um, and he drew his eye to one that was looking for a young princely type of actor to play a part. And he read it over, read it again, and he's like, this sounds like Mark. So he left that audition and he went home and Mark just happened to be sitting on his couch drinking wine. He relayed the information to Mark about George Lucas. They were both fans of American Graffiti and said, he's looking for this character, this princely character for this space movie. And he said, I read it and I just think this would be your part. And, he kind of ended the story because we can all kind of see where this is going. He kind of ended the story with, I don't know whether I'm the reason that Mark Hamill became Luke Skywalker or whether it was already in the works. He's like, but I'm going to tell you folks here in the room, I'm the reason that Mark Hamill was Luke Skywalker. He's like, so, I'm sure maybe the story's been told. I don't know. It'll probably be shown on some of the Sven on the Road segments during the show in the future. But I walked out of that auditorium with Freddy Krueger got Luke Skywalker the part in the movie, and I just
Hmm.
thought it was actually really great and a really great story. So one that I will take away from that panel as a core memory from here on out. So, flashback weekend in and of itself. I mean, it wasn't anything really crazy. I actually, Greg, we did talk about, you and I that, horror realm, which we talked about on this show, extremely similar. Like it just felt like I got picked up and moved to Chicago where Horror Realm was having another event. Some of the same vendors that were in Western Pennsylvania were there in the room in Chicago. Lots of guests, a lot of Terrifier folks. They seem to be making the rounds this year.
Mhm.
Obviously Robert Englund and Ghoulie. So it felt very at home because, Horror Realm is not much different. It's just a different locale, different people. Professional photo ops the same way. So, by no means was it a disappointment. Sven Gulli took it over the top, but it was probably not something that I would have done if it weren't for Sven Gulli. So, I mean, if you have a chance to go, obviously take it if it's, what you want. But I will tell you, if you're local to the Western Pennsylvania scene, Horror Realm is probably right up there, just as good. So, take that for what it's worth from this little black duck, and we'll go from there. But enjoyable. But like I said, the whole reason we went was for the Sven Gulli interaction, and we got it. It was easy. He was incredibly generous and friendly, and they say don't meet your heroes. It's not that case. It's not that case with Sven. So if you get the opportunity, which I don't believe there's a lot, take the opportunity. So that was my experience at Flashback Weekend.
Yeah, I've often found that phrase to be um, quite incorrect. Don't meet your heroes because more often than not, uh, they're pretty cool. At
Mm,
least the sort of people that maybe the sort of people that you and I look up to, they tend to be pretty cool. I mean, maybe there's a caveat that like you shouldn't expect them to be anything other than normal human beings, and that's fair.
mm.
But no, I mean, we've discussed it before. I don't think we've had too many bad experiences. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
keep the
I
expectations where they need to be, and
yep,
don't be a jerk about it. Like if you're out in public and this person's trying to enjoy a meal and you're pestering them, you're going to get a anybody would give you a less than stellar reaction if that's the case. But yeah,
sure,
we haven't really run across too many people that you could say a negative thing about.
that is true.
So, so what's next on your list, Greg?
Next on my list, well, it was something I didn't even have to leave the house for, but it was something special that I had in mind that I had wanted to do for a long time because I realized it wasn't going to happen in person. But if you know me, you know I'm a tremendous fan of Doctor Who, particularly the original series that ran from 1963 to 1989. And uh, the aforementioned Tom Baker, the fourth Doctor, is now into his 90s, and I don't see him doing any more United States autograph signings, nor do I necessarily want him to for his own safety, as far as disease and things like that. It's just better to keep old folks close to home and keep them safe. And although I don't know that he's unhealthy, but he's old nonetheless. And so he does from time to time offer um, purchases of his autograph from his website. So I happened to notice that was open. I ordered one and I got it. And it was, without meeting him, I felt like I had met him because his personality really shone through on this thing. Um, I got a picture of him from the episode The Stones of Blood when he was wearing the extra long scarf that he wore in his some of his later years. And he signed it down the scarf to Greg and Harrison, Tom Baker, down the length of his scarf, and I could just picture him, grinning and grinning that famous grin of his, and signing it right down the scarf for me. And so I feel like I've met him, even though I technically have not. So that's got to be good enough for me because I'm unlikely to. I don't know that he will even do any more signings in the UK necessarily at his age.
Yeah.
And again, that's all right. But I still feel like I got a Tom Baker experience, and it was a good one.
And I think I think that's a lost art. I remember when I was a whippersnapper, there used to be many opportunities to mail things in to get them autographed.
Hmm.
I would say even prior to our time, that was pretty much the way that you got an autograph. You would send something to a baseball team or to an actress or an actor, and you would almost, wish in a prayer. Maybe you get it back. It wasn't even a fee to it in some situations. And it's kind of lost its way over the years because of conventions and, you know, um, authentication services who, bulk, pay these folks to come in and bulk sign. But there are still a few folks. I've actually heard, outside of, obviously your story, a few folks have said, "Hey, did you know that that person is known to sign via mail?" The last person that I can think of that told me this was Taylor Heisey, who's forward for the Minnesota Frost in the Professional Women's Hockey League, who was a high draft pick in the inaugural season. She signs autographs on cards or whatever you send if you send them to a certain address. Now, I wouldn't say that those addresses are readily available, but with modern technology, they're probably not hard to find. But sometimes it works out because some of these folks, in Tom Baker's instance, it might be against, it might be advised against due to his health or the risk. And other folks, they just, you know, don't want to do collectors conventions or they don't. I think Sidney Crosby of the Penguins, after the game, he's breaking down the game, and there's still people that are like outside waiting for him to go to his car. He's tired, he wants to go. So, I'm not
Yeah.
saying he does it by mail, but there are folks who put it into that situation. It's not that they don't want to interact with their fans or give out their autographs, but there's a time and a place. And if you're looking for something and you're not looking for that experience of waiting in line or going traveling to Chicago, you might be able to chase that person down snail mail, which is a dying art. But in this situation, Greg, it sounds like you struck gold.
Yep, it paid off. I was lucky that I looked at the time when he happened to be accepting the requests because he doesn't do it perpetually, I don't think. And I did have to wait a while. I mean, because he probably waited until he got a certain number and then did the signing and sent them all out. But it was well worth it. And I'm certainly glad I did. And it's now framed and hanging on my wall. It makes me smile every day when I see it.
Awesome, awesome. So,
Yeah.
my little segue there in talking about professional hockey, which I promise, folks, I'm not going to get into reviewing an NHL season. Although that might come, it might be another solo episode if you tuned into our Premier, or I guess my Premier League intro that I spared Greg from having to sit through. But I was able to attend during the same trip to Chicago the National Sports Collectors Convention. So this is the second time that I've done it. Last year it was in Cleveland, Ohio. This year it just happened to be the same weekend of Flashback. So, and literally across the street from where Flashback weekend was. So it was a very busy little suburb of Chicago there. But the National Sports Collectors Convention is actually pretty much defined by the name. It is the biggest convention of sports collectors, cards, autograph memorabilia, autograph signing in the sports world that there is. There may be something globally bigger, but I highly doubt it. This facility in Chicago was massive. Like I've been to a lot of conventions, and I can thump my chest a little bit and say I've never gotten lost at any convention I've ever been to. Now, I've never been to San Diego or some of these bigger ones. This one is one. It took me a little while to realize that I am walking through something that I had already walked through. And then I couldn't figure out how to get back to the entrance type of thing. And if you passed up something at a vendor table, you were hard pressed to figure out exactly where you were needed to go back to get it. So it is massive. It is not just a convention of folks selling, although there is an extremely large element of dealers and individual collectors and shops selling at the National. It is known as just the National in sports collectors circles. But this is also a trade show for all the companies, all the card manufacturers, Topps and Upper Deck and Panini. They have huge displays, like massive walk-in displays, um, and they're giving away packs. They're selling product. They're doing raffles, and there's also every well-known card breaker in the country and sometimes across the globe is there breaking from the National, doing exclusive releases from the National. Um, I'm a hockey collector. If you haven't put that together yet in the year we've been doing this, that's what I collect. And Upper Deck was doing what they call redemption packs. So if you bought any Upper Deck product from an authorized Upper Deck dealer, they had these balloons on their tables, gold balloons. If you bought an Upper Deck product from them, you could take your purchase and the certificate that they give with you that you bought it at the National to the Upper Deck booth. They would slice it open so you couldn't resell it. And they would give you a pack that was exclusive to the National. Now, in that pack, you could get autographs, you could get exclusive cards, and you could also get redemption certificates for special, autograph memorabilia and merchandise and things like that. So you had that kind of stuff going on. But then everybody was giving away free stuff. So the National actually put my family over the baggage limit for our flight back, that we had to do another bag purchase because we got so many free shirts and cards and, koozies, just everything. We probably could have, put it back, but we were souvenir hunting at Flashback Weekend and stuff like that as well. But it is an experience. It's actually kind of it's like the World Cup a little bit. Like, cities actually bid to have the National come. So Chicago had it this year. They also have it next year, so 2 straight years in a row in Chicago. Cleveland was the year before. And then I think in 2027, it's back in Atlantic City, which a friend of mine went to the one in Atlantic City before. This just keeps getting bigger and bigger because the actual community of sports collectors is growing and growing and growing. It's definitely something that you can't do it in a day. Like, we tried to do it in a day just because it happened to be when we were going to be out there. But there's no way. Like, I didn't see everything. If you were going with a specific item in mind, or for me, I was looking for Rube Waddell things. They're pretty easy to spot because they're tiny little cigarette cards. If you were looking for a regular card of something that it was normal size, it's like a needle in a haystack. You're never going to see it because you're never going to have enough time. You would basically need the entire 4 days, Thursday through Sunday, to potentially, and I say potentially, see everything. But then you also have the large auction houses. So we had Hunt Auctions that was there. Sotheby's was there. And they basically have on display some of the items that they have coming in upcoming auctions. And this year, I was able to take some photos. There was an entire Macho Man Randy Savage collection of in-ring used gear, personal belongings. There was a screen used Batman and Robin from the Adam West Batman, the 66. That the headpiece from Herman Munster from the Munster show. These were all on display because they were going to auction. And by now, this has been some time. If it's not already auctioned off, it is very soon. And we're talking millions and millions of dollars. I was sending Greg, I sent you, I think, somebody, they were going to auction off Incredible Hulk 1. I think was what it was. But, that type of stuff. So you're seeing sports collectors convention, but these auction houses not only have stuff for sports collectors, they also have this memorabilia that they kind of are showing, so you can kind of see it. And I got a pin, an actual pin that says the Macho Man Randy Savage collection because that's how they're advertising it. It's pretty intense. If you're into the sports collecting uh, circles, the National is almost like a destination. You have to check it out at least once. I know that there's a lot of folks in our area who got to hit it up last year because it was only a couple hours away in Cleveland at the IX Center. But people make pilgrimages to it, and I would just so happen to be that Sven Gulli brought me to the National, so we partook in that, and my wife and son actually had a decent time, which was incredibly shocking. So
That is
that
good.
that was same weekend, so that was and I wish I could tell you that that was the last thing we did, but more on that later, Greg. What else do you have?
Well, it's actually pretty recent, as in yesterday recent. But Dog Days of Summer extends into, until the official first day of fall, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
so I think we can count something that I did just yesterday,
Hmm.
and that would be I attended Tune Fusion Pittsburgh at the David Lawrence Convention Center in downtown Pittsburgh, and it was a basically an animation convention um, focused around primarily Japanese animation, anime, and but there was some American representation as well, certainly. And yeah, the hall was, I'd say, almost 50% of the wall in the entire hall was packed with tables where you could get signatures from various voice actors. So it was a really an impressive um, lineup as far as quantity. And there were also plenty of vendors with adjacent things like Pokemon cards and cosplay swords and video games and comics and manga and plush Pokemon and things of that nature. And there was, of course, a stage area for Q&As and panels for various franchises, which most any convention will have. And there was a section for retro video gaming as well, which was really a pleasant surprise that I did not anticipate. And I got to meet a couple of voice actors who I enjoy, and the first was a fellow by the name of David Kay, and he is known to me primarily for his work in the Transformers franchise as Megatron on Transformers Beast Wars and as Optimus Prime on Transformers Animated. And for my money, those are the two best written Transformers series that there have been to date. And could there be a better one later? Sure, but
Mm.
will I notice it? Maybe. Although if it's that good, I probably will.
Yeah.
But yeah, his I can't say enough good things about his version of Megatron in Beast Wars, and so he was very cool to meet and talk to. And of course, he signed the 8x10 with his quote yes, which Megatron was constantly saying that in between his various schemes that he thought up, which were quite effective and dangerous, and at times even deadly for the Maximals.
Mm.
Yeah, and his Optimus Prime is not quite as quotable. He pretty much said similar things to the other Optimus Primes, but he had more of a character journey because he started out instead of starting out as the definitive leader of the Autobots, he was kind of a young leader working his way up the ranks, and so that was a different take on the character, and it worked really well. And I think very highly of that show. I have almost the entire run of figures from it. There's a few I'm missing. I never did get Starscream. Maybe that's something to look for at a show later this month.
Mm. Spoilers.
But yeah, and I also met a fellow by the name of Eric Vale, and I know him best as the voice of Future Trunks in the Dragon Ball franchise, who is yeah, one of the main heroes of the franchise, and he was pretty cool to talk to. I got an autograph of him, and yeah, Rob, I think maybe you can explain what else I got because I came home with a little prize for you as well.
Yeah, yeah. So this was one that I was back and forth on the fence about going to myself, really because of Eric Vale. Um, my son has recently uh, gotten into along with me because I never partook in it either, but One Piece, which obviously has been going for some time, an incredibly long amount of time. If you started watching it in the late '90s or 99 2000 when it started to first air, but then it got a breath of fresh air with the Netflix live action series last year and continuing. But he is the voice of Sanji, so of the Straw Hat Crew's pirate chef and the cook, and I had luckily knew someone who was going down who could get me a autograph wanted poster of Sanji, and he inscribed it with a quote that I find incredibly funny that he said from the show, and it says, "If you don't want to get hurt, stay out of the kitchen." So he got that autographed to Robert, which is I love having the dual names because my son's name's Robert as well. So it's technically to me and technically to him. So
Mhm.
and Greg was able to pull that off for me because I couldn't make it. And it's one that will be added to my son's wall of autographs of things that he's getting into more and more recently. So um, I really appreciate it, and Greg hooked me up with that. So thank you.
Glad to help.
Mhm. All right. So the last one that I had individually, again, same trip. So as you can see, that is the trip that drained me for pretty much the rest of the month of August. Although it's not the last thing we did, but it's the last thing I guess Greg will talk about from our independent ventures, I guess. So was earlier in the week before the national, before the flashback weekend. I'm going to harken back to the last episode where I did a Premier League football. I don't care what anybody says. It's football, not soccer.
Mhm.
It's football. I did a preview of the Premier League, but I actually got to go to a Manchester United game at Soldier Field in Chicago. So, every year in the summer, they do a tour of friendlies, preseason games somewhere in the world. Whether it's North America, they've done it in Asia, the Middle East. This year they did the Premier League Summer Series in the United States. They played in New Jersey, Atlanta, and Chicago, and I got to go see them play AFC Bournemouth in Soldier Field. Actually got to see two games. Got to see West Ham play earlier in the day, but we didn't necessarily make it in for that whole match. But did get to see Manchester United put 4 goals up on AFC Bournemouth in Soldier Field. So it wasn't the first time that I had seen them. Saw them back in 2017, 16 or 17 in DC when they actually played the Barcelona. So that was a little bit of a quote unquote bigger game because of the opponent, but this one was fun because of where it was. And when I say where it was in Soldier Field. If you guys are unfamiliar with the downtown Chicago area, Soldier Field is on the lake edge. It is basically about as downtown as you get, and it just so happened that amongst all these Chicago ventures, flashback weekend, this game, the national, it was also Lollapalooza weekend. So
Mhm.
it was about as busy in urban Chicago as it could be. We had to walk around Grant Park because it was shut down because of Lollapalooza. Um, I did not go to Lollapalooza. I guess you could say at one point in time there might have been some desire in my younger days to check out all Lollapalooza, but I was close enough. I was good. So um, it was good to be able to see Manchester United play a game in the States. We did make fun of Don, who's been, or I did. I made fun of Don. I don't even think I sent it to him. I think I meant to. Maybe I sent it to Ken, but he might be hearing this for the first time. But because he's a big Chicago Bears fan, and I said to Ken it might be the only winning football being played in Soldier Field this year, and it wasn't the
Mhm.
Bears. But
Mhm.
sorry, Don, if you're listening, that wasn't. It wasn't a cheap shot because I'm not really following the NFL this year too much. So, but that was the last of our solo adventures, Greg. But that isn't where our dog days of summer stop. I think we did a few other things that are probably worth talking about as well. What else we got on the slate?
Indeed, we did. Well, we took in a little film, didn't we? That we certainly enjoyed. That we had been waiting for quite some time. That was finished and ready to go, and no distributor would pick it up until recently when they grew a little more spine and finally decided to grace us with the remake of The Toxic Avenger.
Mm-hmm. We got to see this one with what I've in my head, and this will be the first time vocally I've been thinking about is the Yinz Dahn to Listen movie club,
Mm-hmm.
where another previous guest on the show from our Guar episode, Joel, joined us for this one. We had to do a little bit of traveling. Wasn't it our normal spot to see this one because we wanted to partake in the film as it were and go see the unrated version, which was only a Cinemark um, release, not any of the other theaters. So um, I enjoyed it. I really did, Greg. I don't know what your thoughts were, but I it's one of those ones that I didn't really have high expectations going into it because of the changes that you could obviously see from the previews and the trailers. But I was fun. It was fun for me. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, it's definitely enjoyable. I mean, it's not as intense as the trauma movies that have come out in recent years that have no intention of ever getting any sort of MPAA rating.
Mm,
But yeah, I mean, it's still it delivers the goods and has a lot to enjoy. It's yeah, there's a lot of the jokes hit, and there's some satisfying violence towards those who deserve it. And Peter Dinklage gave an entertaining performance, as did Kevin Bacon and Elijah Wood. And really, it shows what trauma could be capable of if they just dialed it back a little bit
yep.
and uh, went a little more mainstream. And it still has the trauma flavor. So,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
I give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, yeah, and I think we were kind of talking about it earlier today. It had a story, and not that the old ones didn't lack story, but this one had a story to where you were following along, like it was a typical, you know, beginning, middle, end type of story with climaxes and all that kind of thing. So it was there. It wasn't just shock. Sometimes trauma was known to just shock. This had
Yep.
it kind of had everything. It had great jokes. It had some slapstick. It had story. It had action. It was good. It was, was it worth a 3 year wait? I guess, because, if anybody knows the history of this film, like Greg said, it premiered at a film festival in 2022 and it
I think
got
so.
good reviews then, but it did not, like you said, get distributed until, you know, summer 2025. So definitely a good time and I think worth a view. So, and I think Joel, I'm not going to speak for him, but he did appear to be pleased with his viewing of it. So I think I'm going to give it a thumbs up from Joel's standpoint as well. If he's listening and disagrees, too bad. So,
I think that's fair. He seemed to enjoy it as well.
but I did not, and I have yet to this day been able to find the popcorn bucket. Um, I even went early, Greg, to find the popcorn bucket at the theater where we saw it, and it's nothing special. It's a toxic waste drum, but it has the logo, and here's the welcome to the world of reselling popcorn buckets, I guess now.
Yep. Yeah, they're getting scalped. And yeah, it would be nice if the theater actually reserved a few for the day of the actual screening and didn't just sell them as soon as they arrived. But
Right.
that's a problem that I think they should address.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So that wasn't the only thing we did together, though.
Hmm. Yeah, we had a little get together with two of our previous guests, didn't we?
Yeah.
Evan from Main Level Games and Chris from VHS Crypt combined their powers with um, you and I and Ken of KRG Entertainment, and we did the first buy-in event at Main Level Games, where we encouraged folks to bring out their collections that they wanted to sell, and Chris or Evan would appraise them where appropriate and purchase them on the spot. And I'd say it was a smashing success, wouldn't you?
I 100% agree. And I'm not, again, I can let Chris and Evan speak for what they did, but at least from what I saw come in the door and the deals that were made, both folks who brought and folks who received were happy. It was more than there was more that walked in the door than I ever expected to happen. There was actually a pretty large collection of real Ghostbusters stuff that kind of blew everybody's mind, I
Yes,
guess you
that
could
was
say.
the most I've ever seen in one place at one time. It was really something.
Yeah, some of the stuff I didn't even know existed. And
Same,
I collect real Ghostbuster stuff.
as do I.
So, to see that come in the door, and then, there was also a lot of other stuff. Not everything was totes and totes of real Ghostbuster stuff, but even the stuff that did come in, um, I honestly don't think that I saw anybody get turned away empty-handed, without a little bit of cash return for the goods they brought in. There might have been a few things here and there in the bottom bins that folks had that, they might not have even known that were there that, Evan or Chris might not have been interested in, but it wasn't much. It wasn't much.
Mhm.
So I even think that there were, obviously Evan being in his store, there was a lot of sales that day, but I think Chris actually had some over the counter sales as well with some Power Ranger stuff that I saw. He brought a little taste of what he was looking for. And I actually saw a couple people made multiple trips after their first go around. So I can
Yep,
say
they
that
left and came back with more. Yeah.
it was a successful event. Like I said, just for us to be able to facilitate those superpowers combining, I think was I was glad to be able to do it, and I think you were as well.
Yep, and I have a funny feeling it will happen again before too long.
Yeah, yeah, I would say that there'll be an opportunity for Christmas present funds if you have collectibles you're looking to offload. Um, Date and time TBD for buy-in round two or whatever clever name we come up with it before the Christmas holiday. And that kind of brings us up to the present, which was kind of the last thing we did, which is this afternoon, right?
Yep. Hmm.
So we were able to scoot on down to the Monroeville Mall. Obviously, the Monroeville Mall is famous in and of itself for its role in a few horror films of note. But today it was taken over by retro media. And from listening to the show, you guys all know that Greg and I are fans of retro media. When we say retro media, we're talking vinyl records, VHS tapes, CDs, old TVs, yeah, old music, old posters, things like that. Not just toys, but stuff that was, substance media, not just a streaming of a song or a movie. So, um, the folks with uh, I believe it was put on by the folks with the Living Dead Museum. Is that not correct, Greg?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that crew, which always does a stellar job with that convention, has been doing smaller events throughout the year, and this was one of them. And it was a quality event as well. I Yeah, had a good time checking out all the stuff there, and of course, I came home with more as I always do.
Yep, and I did as well. You had your, it's very retro media focused. You did have a few folks who had some video game stuff there, some modern collectibles, things like that. But it was really, perusing the tables and tables and tables of VHS, vinyl, laser disc, some Betamax stuff in there, 8 track, VHS is where our eyes go, and I was able to pick up a couple of things that I didn't expect to see, nor did I even in certain cases know existed. But I managed to get the three tape box set or slip case set of the Hercules series with the Xena tie-ins. So in a collectible slipcase that was sealed, which was, out of everything that I bought, that was probably my favorite thing today. But I also got Attack of the Killer Tomatoes on VHS as well, and a Laserdisc copy of whether it's the best or whether it's the worst or whether it's the best because it's the worst hockey movie that I've ever seen. And that includes probably Slapshot 2, which got a reference today. Youngblood with Rob Lowe as Dean Youngblood. Patrick Swayze was in that film. It's just not good, but it's hockey themed, so I've seen it way too many times. So, what did you end up bringing home, Greg?
Well, I got a few things primarily from a friend of mine, a fellow named Tim Gross, who is known around town for his own independent filmmaking and for his own convention, Gross Fest, which celebrates that sort of thing. And from him, I got the two VHS set of the miniseries of Stephen King's The Stand, directed by Mick Garris, which had a really a great lineup of actors. And I think it's the best adaptation of The Stand to date, although there have only been two, really. But I much prefer this one to the more recent one that was on Paramount Plus. And I also got from him two DVDs by the I'm not sure of the best word to describe him other than his work has to be seen to be believed and will amaze you. An auteur by the name of Joel D. Wincoop, and I got two DVDs from him, which I cannot wait to watch. And one is just called the Joel Wincoop Action Pack, which has which I can't wait to see what sort of action will take place in that. And the other one is a sci-fi film called The Craiglon Incident 3, Annihilation. The adventure continues. And I can't wait to see what kind of adventure that is. And he's Joel in a way reminds me of our friend David the Rock Nelson with a similar DIY ethos and using anyone he can in his movies. There's maybe a little more traditional structure, but it's no less entertaining. And so I recommend his work. And
Yeah.
the other thing I got from another vendor was which you pointed out to me, and I'm glad you did, was a VHS bootleg of a White Zombie concert from 1993.
Mm.
And
White Zombie on
White Zombie
VHS.
was one of the bands that really got me into heavy metal music, and I'll be glad to relive this one.
Yep, yep. Yeah, that one kind of jumped out. I mean, it was a clamshell case. You kind of tell it was not an official release, and it was, it called to me, and therefore knew it would call to you.
Mm-hmm.
So no, it was a really good. Yeah, that one was more of a recent one. And kind of like just like that. Summer collapses into fall, right, Greg? I mean,
Yep.
it's been a little slow, but not really slow. It was just, finding a time for us to get together to talk about all these wonderful events, whether they were individual or together. But it was a hot summer. I think the weather, or at least the weather in Western Pennsylvania, and the like 0.001 inches of rain we got in the entire month of August really put a damper on a lot of
Yeah.
people's, you know, uh, activities. Yes, it wasn't rainy, but it was pretty brutal hot.
Yeah, it was dry. I mowed my lawn once in August, and that was probably too much.
I was just
Rewarded
talking.
with brown.
Yeah, I was just talking to the same thing with my wife. We cut it the day we got back from the Chicago trip because we didn't cut it before we left, and we left in July. So if
Mhm.
I would have cut it before we left, because I wouldn't have been so lazy, I wouldn't have cut my grass at all in August. Which, you know, it it was like the wettest June and the driest August. So yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
we kind of, if you balanced it all out, it would have been perfect, but it just happened to be, monsoon and then drought. So it's kind of crazy, but really messed with us. But, now we're looking at 60-degree weather in the evenings and in the mornings. So it is definitely one of those summer collapses into fall type of situation, which opens up the door for us to basically not be able to do anything other than events over the next 2 months. So, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, we're going at a brisk pace from here on out.
yeah. So, we just talked about a couple of things that Greg and I did this weekend, and it doesn't stop. So, what do we got on the horizon, Greg?
Hmm. Well, I know there is the Rogers Flea Market in Rogers, Ohio, which we are eyeing up a visit to that
Yeah.
potentially, because not only because it's a really impressive, sprawling flea market, but they are starting to book celebrity guests to do autograph signings there, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I think there was one in mind that you wanted to check off of your list. I've already met her, but it'll be cool to add her to your collection as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Friday the 13th actress, oh, why am I drawing a blank?
Judy
Judith.
Aronson.
Yep, Aronson. I always get the last names.
Mm-hmm.
But she will be there either 2 Fridays from now. Which, I'm looking at what Rogers is doing, and I'm kind of understanding why. This is the time of year, because they just started this within the last month or so. This is the time of year where the flea markets, the rummage sales, they start to tail off.
Yep.
So this is a smart move. This is bringing folks in for another reason. They stick around. They have some permanent vendors that are at this large sale that, obviously will like the rub of having folks come in maybe for another reason and then sticking around to peruse. So um, I always find myself going to Rogers in the spring. Um, I can remember one horror story going on a Good Friday,
Ooh.
because it was like as busy as you could potentially be. You couldn't find parking, but I think that this is their next evolution to bring folks, patrons back to the sale as the season starts to end, and I'm kind of looking forward to it because I haven't made it to the sale this year, so seems like a good first one to go to.
Yeah, I haven't made it out there in quite some time myself. I had so many other things going on this year that I was really not that big into flea marketing this year. But I mean, I still found plenty of treasure elsewhere. But
Hmm.
I'll be glad to get back there and see what can come up. And you know what? We have two other things coming that same weekend, don't
Oh,
we?
yeah, it's the same weekend.
Oh man, we're going to need vacation days to recover from these vacation
Yeah,
day here. Yeah,
yeah,
and the probably the one that requires the most setup for us will be Toy Palooza, which will now be at the Monroeville Convention Center, put on by our friends at D&E Collectibles, and will be probably the biggest toy show Pittsburgh has ever seen.
yeah, yeah. This is kind of the culmination of a lot of hard work. If you listen to any of our episodes to when we talked about toy shows, you guys know that we're extremely friendly with the folks down at D&E. Those guys are fantastic.
Yes.
They put on a great show. They have a great shop. You never go wrong. You can't walk into D&E without finding something that you didn't have or didn't even know existed. And the show's the same way. And like I said, this is the culmination. This is where they wanted to go. Well, ever since they started back on the South Side in Pittsburgh at the IBEW hall, was taking Toy Palooza to the Monroeville Convention Center. There was, it wasn't a short road for those folks to get there, just due to competing contracts and all kinds of political type of restrictions and potential closures and things like that were going to occur. But um, on September 20th, Toy Palooza makes its debut in the Monroeville Convention Center. And I have seen the table layout, or at least a rough sketch. It's going to be massive, um, massive to the point where you're going to have space as a patron. There's no doubt about it. It's not going to be crazy elbow to elbow packed, too tight of aisles. It's just a large space, and there's not a celebrity guest row. There's not a bunch of fudge vendors, or or people selling siding. This is going to be wall to wall to wall to wall toys and toy vendors and collectible vendors. So if you're within earshot of this podcast, it doesn't even matter whether you think you're in driving distance or not, because I'm almost certain there are people coming from out of the country to buy at this event. It's going to be big, and these guys have worked hard to get it to this point, and I'm excited. I think it's going to be fantastic. We all work together really well in the community. Greg and I were talking to someone extremely recently that basically said you can't choke the market. Like, you can't be my show is better than your show. Everybody has to work together because we breathe life into the community. If you try to not collaborate, then we're only hurting ourselves. And the fact that these guys put on such a great show, I am more than happy to vend, more than happy to be a patron, and more than happy to shout it from the mountaintops, because the more people that enjoy Toy Palooza, Toy Hio, KRG Toy Show, the more the hobby spreads. And I think that's fantastic. And these guys are the epitome of that. So really looking forward to it. And Greg and I have a few evenings ahead of us to get prepped. We're going to curate a heck of a little spread for our table, for the KRG table. So if you are listening to this and you're planning on heading down, make sure you swing by and say hello. Maybe we'll give you a shout out on this here podcast. What do you say, Greg?
Yes, we would love to meet you. We would love to hear from you. So if you're in Monroeville that weekend, come on out and say hello.
Catch us before we have to leave to go to the next event that is that weekend.
Yes, and that would be the Drive-In Super Monsterama, which is put on by the Riverside Drive-In in Vandergrift, PA, and they do twice a year special drive-in events for 2 nights, which feature overnight camping if you like, and uh, a list of 4 movies per night, and they're all classics. And I would love to do both nights this time. I don't know if I can swing it sleep wise with Toy Palooza being and with Rogers being that weekend. So, but I'm definitely going to do Saturday night, I believe, and I am quite excited to hear. And if I can find the list, maybe I can tell you what movies are in store. And I think it would, if I had to pick one night over the other, I don't think I could. It's a coin flip thing because they're both really cool. Because Friday night gives us Mark of the Devil, The Sentinel, The Devil's Reign, and The Devil Times Five. And Saturday night gives us The Omega Man, Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978, Scum of the Earth, and Eaten Alive. Now, the Saturday night movies are the ones I'm a little more familiar with of those, but they're also ones I really enjoy. So maybe I would lean a little more towards that, but as it happens, that's most likely where I'll be. So hey, if you like drive-in movies, I highly recommend the Riverside. It's a very intimate one-screen theater, and they put on a great show with vendors, including Creepy Classics. It puts on our beloved Monster Bash convention, and I can't wait to see what they have in store there.
And 2 days before this, Thursday, the 18th of September, hockey training camp opens, Greg. And I
So
can't
it
even
does.
I
Huh.
can't even tell you. Like, I will tell you, August is like it's my month off of hockey. I'll admit it. I do take a month off, and just because really nothing goes on. There's no real hockey anywhere in the world. Um, Basically, after the July 1st deadline, the general managers go on vacation, the league goes on vacation. But as of Labor Day, like September 1st, everybody wakes up and podcasts start coming out and rumors start flying around and training camps are going to open and rookie camps going to go on in Buffalo. But the 18th, the Pittsburgh Penguins open training camp. So I may be at the Lemieux complex on the 18th. I don't know. It happens. It's one of those things. It's like, the I flock like the salmon of Capistrano. Isn't that what they said in the Dumb and Dumber was the salmon of Capistrano? That's me.
It sounds vaguely familiar.
So uh, that's obviously not as big, but it is an indication that summer has definitely started to dissipate because I believe that the fall equinox is going to be that same weekend, Greg. It's like the 20th or 21st of September. So we're going to be out of the dog days of summer by the time we talk about this mega weekend that's coming up. But shortly thereafter, we're dipping our toes back into the water of another convention type situation, and we're going to try our hand at the old KRG trading card show, which made a debut in 2023. So if you're anywhere near the Clearview Mall in Butler, Pennsylvania, home of the KRG Toy Show in January, we are going to be doing a trading card show in the mall corridors, free admission. Come up, lots of Pokemon, lots of sports cards. Probably see some Magic, some Yu-Gi-Oh, and you get to see Greg's smiling face. So
Hmm.
that's Saturday, the 27th of September. If you've made it this far in the podcast, we're expecting you to be there because you're a trooper and you've made it this far into the podcast. So we expect you to see you at the trading card show. Come say hello, buy some Pokemon cards, patronize the businesses that are in the mall because the mall is getting a breath of life. Greg, looks like we're going to see some massive new changes to the Clearview Mall in the very near future, and that makes my heart happy because that's where I grew up.
Yes. Same. Yes. A lot of memories attached to that place for me as well. And we're going to shock some life back into it as best we can that day. And we hope to see a bunch of you there as well.
Hmm So, and that is just September. October is like we don't let up on the throttle. It's pedal to the
Hmm.
metal the whole way through the month of October with some KRG events, more toy shows, monster bashes, video game conferences, Halloween, um, you name it. It happens in October. So if you think we've rambled on enough about September, probably have multiple podcasts in October of all the sweet Halloween themed, toy show themed, video game themed stuff that we roll into with a couple of probably first time podcasts on a few of the events we go to, and then some that we may revisit just to see how they fleshed out in this iteration. So, anything else to add, Greg? Anything pop up that in your mind that you can think of that is worth teasing our audience?
Well, I think that pretty well covers it. I'm sure we'll do, at the very least, a recap of September and all the fun that we just described and how that plays out. And uh, then we'll tease you a little bit more with what's going to be coming in October. And that'll be here before we know it because this year is just moving at a really rapid clip.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. All right, folks. Well, thank you for listening, and please head over to all your podcast apps and subscribe so you don't miss an occasional episode about this sort of stuff. Give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. We're all over the social media dial, so go check out our other ventures just by clicking on links in those podcast social media channels. And, stay tuned very, very carefully because Greg has some stuff on the horizon
I
that is going to
do.
be very interesting. So, um, we're not going to tease you too much more than that, but if you check out our social media channels, you might see a little teaser video of what he's got in mind, and we're excited about it. So just putting a little bit more into the Yinz Down to Listen sphere. So keep an eye
Yes.
there, and if you're interested in being a guest or submitting a question, you can always email us at yinsdowntolisten@gmail.com. And as always, Greg, good show, and may Godzilla destroy your home last.